This is Julia Philippi. I am here with Lila Humbert, and correct my pronunciation if I'm wrong. And we're going to talk a little bit about her background and her life as a midwife. So I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Lila Humbert. I have been a midwife for about 3.5 years now. I started out my career as a nurse, and I worked at a hospital in Memphis and on a high-risk antepartum unit. So we weren't delivering babies. We were actually trying to keep people from delivering babies, if that makes sense. And it was an academic setting, and I learned a ton, and it was all very high risk. And it was fascinating, and I loved it. But I knew that what I really wanted to do was to be a midwife. And so I moved to Nashville, worked on a very similar unit here at Centennial, and then I was accepted into Vanderbilt's nurse midwifery program. And so entered that and did school full-time for about 2 years. And then after graduating, was really fortunate to be accepted into the fellowship at Baby and Company, what was then Baby and Company and is now the Vanderbilt Birth Center. And so I worked as a fellow for about almost a year before I was accepted or offered a full-time position and accepted. And I've been here ever since. So it's been a little over 3 years now that I've been at the birth center.
And you're there now, right? So the bedroom behind you is actually the birth room. I love it.
It is.
So tell me a little bit about your typical week there. What do you do? And I say typical week instead of typical day, because I know you rotate through clinic and call and all the things. I think people will be really interested to hear about that.
Yeah, so I am in a little bit of a unique position, both within the birth center, but also I think midwifery as a whole, and that I have a set schedule. So I do work, my weeks run very typically the same, but that's been new since I've come back to work after having my second kid. Before that, I worked just a usual midwife schedule, which was different every week. And we run our schedules by the month. So we do a certain number of clinic days per month and a certain number of on-call days per month.
About how many is that? Yeah.
So I work 75% of full-time, so not quite full-time. And I do 4.5 clinic days in a month. And I do 8 call shifts in a month as well.
And those are 12 hours?
Yes, 12-hour call shifts, and they're split evenly nights and days. So I do 4 night shifts a month and 4 day shifts a month being on call.
That sounds great. So what types of visits do you have at your clinic? Who are you mostly seeing?
Yeah, mostly at the birth center, we're doing prenatal care. So the majority of my day is spent seeing pregnant people from the beginning of pregnancy to the end and into the postpartum period. But we also do, probably more than you'd think, a decent amount of well woman care or gyne care in terms of IUD placements and preconception visits and fertility visits, things like that.
How much newborn care do you do?
As a midwife, I only do newborn care kind of in that immediate newborn period. So a newborn exam following birth. And then that kind of ends my newborn care. But when I was a fellow, and now the role of our nurses is doing a further follow-up visit, 24 to 48 hours after that. We have our birthing couples come back to the birth center with the baby for an assessment.
I love it. So what's the most challenging part of being a midwife?
I would say the schedule is really challenging. I worked night shift as a nurse, and I found that really hard, but there's a unique kind of difficulty also in flipping back and forth between days and nights that is uniquely challenging about being a midwife. And also as a mom, I have 2 kids. I have a 3-year-old and a baby who will be 1 on Thursday. And juggling my time between taking care of my kids and also being a person myself and also being a midwife is really hard. And all of those things kind of feel in tension all the time. In that it can be truly exhausting at times. You never know how the week's going to go or how the shift is going to go. So there are weeks that it's great and I get really fortunate and I do sleep a lot. And there are weeks where it takes me, a good 3 days to recover from a long, busy night shift. And in those 3 days of recovery, I'm also like taking care of 2 humans at home and trying to take care of myself too. And like have a life outside of my job also. So it feels like there's a lot of tension between those things. And I do feel like more than most jobs, midwifery really requires a lot of you, both in terms of like time and energy and emotional investment. And it's hard sometimes to not feel like, to not allow my job to sort of like suck the life out of the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm. What really works well for you in doing that balance? Have you found?
Yeah, I mean, I think partly is being really upfront with my coworkers and my team here at the birth center about what I need, whether it be during a night shift and I ask my nurse, like, can I go take a 30-minute nap, but also being upfront with my partner about what I need. And I think also just recognizing, I don't know, setting my expectations that like, this is what I signed up for. This is the job and the calling that I have decided to pursue, and it's worth it to me. And so part of that too was asking my team for a set schedule has been really helpful for me in terms of just like managing my energy and my sleep, and also for childcare purposes. But I also recognize that I'm really fortunate to have that situation, and most midwives are not offered that opportunity.
No. What's the most rewarding thing about being a midwife for you?
I think just being allowed into the sacred space of somebody's birth. And I guess not even just the birth. I mean, I think even of the whole experience of being pregnant. There are vulnerable moments along the way, and having the privilege of being a part of that and to walk alongside women and birthing people in those spaces is a real gift. And it has given me a lot of joy, and at times a lot of tears, but even in the hard moments, it definitely still feels like a privilege to be able to be in these spaces that are huge moments in people's lives.
Yeah, that is pretty powerful. Anything else you would add to people who are thinking about going into midwifery?
That's a good question. I think that you need to kind of consider the cost a little bit of being a midwife, because it is, I think most of us would consider it a calling. And I think without that deep sense of purpose and finding fulfillment in that sacred space, I don't know that it would feel worth it all the time.
Mm-hmm. It's a pretty powerful profession.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to turn off the recording.
Okay.